Hi everyone, I am back for another review and I will be reviewing Terminator 2. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and the movie came out in 1991 and it's directed by James Cameron, the first movie's director as well. And I will review that at another time, Terminator 1. There are some fun facts to that movie. And this movie is basically Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the infamous robot, the T-800, but also at the same time having a human element to it where he actually cares and actually has a soul. That is the point, I feel like, of Terminator 2. All the same cast of characters from the first one is back, except the T-1000 played by Robert Patrick, which is a little more is very vicious and comes back no matter what, and it's undefeatable for the duration of the film, except, spoiler alert, the last part where the big lava part. It was certainly an interesting choice for Arnold Schwarzenegger to play the T-800 character. In the first movie, he was a bad guy, but in this movie, he's trying to avenge somebody. He's trying to avenge to save the kid's life and also help out Sarah Connor, which is the whole point of that movie. And he kind of sacrifices his life for it. The Miles Bennett character was a little interesting because he's the one who kind of programs everything, all these robots, but he kind of gives off that Sam Jackson in Jurassic Park, the Ray Arnold vibe, where he kind of programs everything, but then he ends up being a victim of everything that he created, and kind of like a real life Frankenstein kind of situation. And I feel like that's basically the whole movie. Like, the movie was ahead of its time when it came to technology, especially AI and whatnot. So AI is where today you look at AI, you can't even distinguish certain things. Science has a way of not always being used for the moral things, shall we say. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, nuclear war, things like that. Science is used to create medicine, develop research and development for betterment of life, but also at the same time it could be used for death and destruction. I'm not making a political statement, I'm just stating what has happened throughout history with science. And this movie is no different. This movie has created something where robots, and at the same time, the robots could do terrible things if left unchecked. And the whole point of the movie is that the T-800 is trying to defend Sarah Connor and her child from the damage that T-1000 can do. So that is basically the whole movie, and it's a little bit ahead of its time, but also at the same time, I think there's a lot of things that are real today that the movie kind of foresaw many years ago. And this movie came out in 1991, so this is like 30 plus years ago of the same kind of basically thinking ahead. What I found was, it was interesting how James Cameron always kind of has these like wacky and wild ideas, and he's able to kind of write them into words and kind of turn it into reality, as we see with Titanic, as we saw with Avatar, and the Terminator movies are no different. And at that time, in like the late 80s, early 90s, when this movie came out, Wabot 2 was something that was a robot that was created and it could play the piano. But having said that, it was a movie where a lot things of right and wrong were portrayed, but also at the same time, compared to the first movie, there was a little more of a human element to it. And I feel the more the movie goes on, I don't want to give away too much, I feel like the more of a human element was portrayed as opposed to the first Terminator. And T-800 was kind of interesting, where in the first movie he was a bad guy, now he's a good guy. T-1000 is basically a bad guy no matter what. So, which I found kind of interesting. Kind of came back, even when you thought he was dead, he came back from the brink, which is very interesting to watch and very intense. What I will say, my experience of the movie is definitely ahead of its time. Definitely you learn a lot about technology and you don't have to be like a tech savvy person to understand. But I will say it is a movie that you have to watch in succession. You have to watch the first one, you have to watch the second one, you have to watch the third one. You have to watch the one that came out recently, back in 2015, Terminator Genesis. Only because you have to understand how technology evolved throughout the whole process. Fun fact, when Arnold Schwarzenegger came out with the first movie in 1984, producers wanted to produce another one right away. And Arnold said, now is not the time, let's wait. And when Terminator 2 actually came out many years later, he was proven right because it was another hit. He didn't want to rush it. So I kind of thought Arnold was kind of smart in many different ways. And I thought Arnold Schwarzenegger is kind of like a smart, savvy actor. There were obviously a lot of jokes about him, but I feel like he was someone that kind of felt the pulse of people. And I thought he had a very successful career because of it, and Terminator 2 was a result of it. So it's basic, and everybody still talks about it to this very day. So hasta la vista baby, and all those sort of things. Him learning to smile, which I thought was so hilarious in the movie. What I will say is it's a movie where it involves family, but also at the same time you are fighting machines, and at some point you do kind of turn into an animal yourself when you fight a machine. And I feel like that was Linda Hamilton's character, Sarah Connor. I felt like that was her thing. In the first movie, she was a little bit of a different role, and I thought Terminator 2 was a little bit of a different role for her. She portrayed herself. Terminator 1, she was kind of thought to be a little naive. This one, she was a little more experienced, and she kind of knew how to fight. Kind of picked her battles as opposed to being all scattered in the first one. And it's an interesting movie to watch. It's just interesting to watch it was at a time when 1991 was a time when internet still wasn't readily available to anybody. No smartphones, obviously, and whatnot. So you still kind of had to depend on old technology. And I like watching movies like that because it tends to show how people survived without, especially in this bizarre world of Terminator 2, without technologies everybody talks about. And the movie is something where James Cameron has a creative mind, and everybody had a creative mind in it. And it's a fun movie to watch. And the thing is, it's just a great movie to watch with your kids, especially because, younger people, I must add, because it's a movie where younger people have a lot of questions, and I feel like wonder isn't a thing anymore. And I feel like this movie kind of brings back that time, at least in that point in time when wonder was a thing. And yeah, I will see you guys at the next review. Came out in 1991, and I will see you guys at the next review.